and welcome to WION Speed. I'm Swaroop. In the next 30 minutes, I bring you the latest from across the globe. Let's get started. North Korea fired 2 more unidentified projectiles in the early hours of Friday. This is the 6th launch by North Korea in less than a month's time. South Korean military side said that the projectiles were fired from near the city of Tongchon into the Sea of Japan. The South Korean Joint Chief of Staff said that the country was monitoring the situation for additional launches. The launch comes hours after North Korea said that inter-Korean talks were over. With tensions rising in the Korean peninsula, North Korea has now said that it will never again sit down with South Korea for talks. The North also rejected South Korean President Moon Jae-in's pledge for bringing unification of the peninsula by 2045. In a statement, a North Korean spokesperson said that the South was entirely responsible for lack of talks between the two countries. The North has been protesting against the joint military exercises between the US and South Korea. A US delegation visited the Turkish border town of Akakale on Thursday. This was part of the US-Turkish efforts to establish a joint operations center to coordinate a planned safe zone in the neighboring Syria. The two NATO allies had last week agreed to establish a center to manage the zone in northern Syria. This in a bid to safeguard Turkey from the conflict-ridden Syria. However, no agreement on the key details of the facility have been announced as yet. A border post on the Bolivia-Chile border closed recently due to unrest. The border crossing at Tesiga in Bolivia is one of the busiest between the South American neighbors. It was shut after Bolivian authorities came under attack by alleged smugglers for government efforts to crack down on smuggling. Vehicles and border post facilities can be seen on fire while locals throw stones at authorities. The head of Bolivia's customs authority said that the border crossing was closed for security issues.
Yeah, just that was.
Several of the rescued migrants were transferred from the Spanish rescue ship Open Arms to the Italian island of Lampedusa on Thursday. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said that 6 EU countries had agreed to take some 150 migrants from the ship. Conte informed that the migrants will be shared among France, Germany, Romania, Portugal, Spain and Luxembourg. Italy had previously refused permission for the ship to dock on its ports. Conte accused far-right Minister Matteo Salvini of disloyalty for being obsessed with closing Italy's ports to migrants. Gibraltar authorities have decided to free Iranian tanker Grace 1. This is the biggest development in the Iran-UK tanker row. Gibraltar's Chief Minister, Fabian Picardo, has decided to lift the detention order. He has cited a formal written assurance from Tehran behind his move. The hearing at the Gibraltar Supreme Court came amid a bid by the United States to seize the vessel. The seizure of tanker Grace 1 had triggered a major diplomatic row between Iran and the West. Gibraltar authorities have released all 24 Indians on board Iranian tanker Grace 1 that was taken into custody on 4th July. The news was confirmed by Indian High Commissioner to London. Last month, Indian officials from Indian mission in London got consular access to crew members and the 3-member team went to meet them. The Indian crew spent 43 days in detention on board the ship. Citizens from Russia, Philippines were also on board the tanker. At least 15 people were killed in an insurgent attack at a military college in western Myanmar on Thursday. Most of those killed were members of the security forces. An armed group named the Northern Alliance has taken responsibility for the attacks. A spokesman from the group said they were responding to the recent army action in ethnically sensitive areas. The attacks mark a major escalation in a decades-old conflict in the region where several groups have been fighting for greater autonomy for the ethnic minorities. China has now called for an informal closed-door consultation with the permanent members. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi had written a letter to the United Nations complaining about India's decision to abrogate Article 370. The discussions will reportedly be aimed at arriving at a conclusion as to how the Council should react to Pakistan's letter. Pakistan had called for the letter to be circulated as quickly as possible and is reportedly keen on a meeting of the permanent members. On India's 73rd Independence Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the nation from the iconic Red Fort in Delhi. Despite Pakistan's desperate attempts to malign the celebrations, Modi did not even mention Pakistan once in his speech. From abrogation of Article 370 to the need for one nation, one poll, the Prime Minister touched upon various issues as India celebrated its 73rd year of independence. From the ramparts of Red Fort, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced a major military reform. The Prime Minister announced the creation of the Chief of Defence Staff. This is a post that has been a long-pending recommendation of various defence panels. Chief of Defence Staff, or the CDS, will be the senior to the service chiefs and the single point of contact between the armed forces and the Prime Minister. The CDS is meant to streamline and prioritise defence spending to meet the requirements of India's national security. A group of Pakistanis clashed with Indians in the British capital of London. The Indians were gathered at the spot to celebrate their country's 73rd Independence Day. The police arrived on the spot as the situation went out of hand. The incident comes days after India abrogated Jammu and Kashmir's special status. Pakistan once again provoked India along the line of control. Pak troops violated ceasefire in the Uri and Rajouri sectors along the border. The Indian Army retaliated in a punitive response to the unprovoked firing. At least 3 Pakistan Army soldiers were killed in this crossfire. In fact, the Pakistan Army has tweeted names and pictures of its soldiers who were killed. South Korea celebrated its 74th Liberation Day on 15th August. Along with the celebrations, residents in Seoul had held a vigil against Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Activists gathered at the Seoul Plaza to mark the country's liberation from the Japanese rule between 1910 to 1945. Tensions between the two countries have recently escalated, with both countries removing each other from their preferential trade system.
아베를 반대하는 일본의 양심적인 민주시민과 함께 할 것입니다.
파도를 가르면서 고다시 외치겠습니다. 국민의 힘으로!
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Thursday that Israel would bar a visit by US Congresswomen Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. This after US President Donald Trump called on Israel not to let them in. The decision was met with strong condemnation by the US Democrats and the Palestinians. Omar herself has termed the decision as quote-unquote an insult to democratic values. Meanwhile, reacting to the decision, Trump said that he could not imagine why Israel would let them in. China has deployed a large number of paramilitary forces close to the Hong Kong border amidst fears of a Chinese military crackdown in the region. Hong Kong has been on the boil for 11 weeks now. The deployment of troops comes a day after satellite images showed armoured tanks lined up near the border. Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, violent clashes between the police and protesters continued. Hong Kong officials confirmed that nearly 1,000 flights have been cancelled in the last 5 days. China has now warned foreign forces against conniving in Hong Kong. China has also accused unidentified foreign forces for the violent protests in Hong Kong. The Chinese ambassador to UK, Liu Xiaomin, also accused Western media of being unbalanced in their reporting of the protests. He has reiterated that violent offenders will be brought to justice.
So it's a near.
Hollywood superstar and Hong Kong native Jackie Chan has expressed his worries and distress over the riots in Hong Kong. Earlier this month, Jackie Chan had joined an online campaign calling 5-star red flag has 1.4 billion flag guards to express his love for China. As a Hong Kong native, Jackie Chan expressed his love for his hometown Hong Kong and his wish that peace should be restored soon.
I love my country.
In some worrying news for the global economy, yield curves for both the United States and the United Kingdom have inverted for the first time. The inversion of the yield curves is always considered as a classic signal of recession. In the past, a recession has followed the inversion of the yield curves. The latest example was that of 2008. The markets also seem to be predicting doom. The US share index, Dow Jones, recorded its sharpest drop since October on account of the yield curves inverting. Scientists are a step closer to being able to cure the deadly Ebola hemorrhagic fever. They have announced this after 2 experimental drugs showed survival rates of almost 90%. In a clinical trial in Congo, the drugs will now be offered to all patients infected with the viral disease in an ongoing outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
And so when they get people who are trusted.
Several drills were conducted across Peru to raise awareness on disasters. Firefighters and paramedics responded during the mock drill of a magnitude 8.5 earthquake in the capital of Lima. Hundreds of residents participated in the drill operations on Thursday. The drill took place on 12th anniversary of an earthquake in Pisco, which killed 519 people and injured more than 1,200 others. Peru is located in the Pacific Ocean's ring of fire, where 85% of the world's seismic activity occurs. Argentines are reeling from an ongoing economic crisis and a shock election result that wiped out around 25% of the peso's value. Hundreds took to the streets recently to draw attention to the dire conditions many are facing currently. Meanwhile, Argentine President Mauricio Macri met with his cabinet ministers after having announced a series of welfare subsidies and tax cuts for lower-income workers. However, the new policies continue to contradict President's promise to fix economic mismanagement made while he took office in 2015. Celebrity race car driver Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his wife and child escaped a plane crash after their private jet ran off a runway and caught fire in Tennessee. All of them were reportedly transferred to a hospital for evaluation. An investigation is going on into the case of this crash. A pair of male royal penguins have adopted an egg at the Berlin Zoo after failed attempts to hatch a stone. According to shopkeepers, the situation is not uncommon in sea animals. However, it will be a first in Berlin, which would see the birth of its first baby penguin in more than 20 years. July 2019 is officially Earth's hottest month on record. It has beaten the record of June 2019, which had been the hottest ever month of June in recorded history. Global temperatures this year were 1.71 degrees above the 20th century average. This year's July beat 2016 July with the hottest month on record by 0.05 degrees. Records date back to 1880. Microplastics have now invaded the pristine Arctic, a clear indication of widespread air pollution. Recently, a team of scientists found tiny pieces of plastic inside ice cores drilled in the Arctic. While researchers cannot trace the trajectory of microplastic particles, some say that these particles will never disappear from the Arctic. Western Japan has been hit by a tropical storm as heavy rains continue to batter various parts of the world. The storm has now displaced over 600,000 people. This has led to cancellations of hundreds of flights and trains. Several highways across the country also remain closed, and bullet train services were affected across Japan. Three limited edition bottles of Heinz tomato ketchup have been based on the tattoos of British songwriter Ed Sheeran. They have been sold at an auction in London recently, with one going under the hammer for £1,500 to mark Heinz's 150th birthday. An equal number of the Ed Sheeran x Heinz tomato ketchup tattoo edition bottles will be available across the world, featuring a copy of Sheeran's own Heinz inking.
I'll raise the gavel.
Russia's space agency Roscosmos has released a video of a robot being prepared for a trip to the International Space Station. Footage shows a Spybot F850 robot manipulating different objects and performing moves with the help of a human operator. The humanoid is even capable of shooting pistols with both hands. In 2017, Spybot F850 was shown to the Russian President Vladimir Putin. The launch date for the robot is set to August 22nd.